My mother slid my grandmother's wedding ring off her hand while the casket was still open. No hesitation, no whisper, no shame, just her fingers steady, prying it loose in front of everyone. The sobs around us did not stop. The room smelled like lilies and coffee. I stood still with a paper cup in my hand. Water tipped over the rim and ran down my wrist. She looked up at me calm, almost bored. "She wanted me to have this," she said. "You know that." No one said a word. A chair leg scraped the floor. I heard the clink inside her purse. I know what silence costs. I stared at the pale mark the ring left on my grandmother's finger. Heat crawled up my neck. This was not about jewelry. This was about taking anything they could reach and calling it theirs. I wanted to say stop. I wanted to take the ring back and put it where it belonged. I wanted to be the quiet daughter and keep the peace. Pick one, my head said. Do something, or do nothing and live with it. The funeral director cleared his throat. A cousin brushed my shoulder as she passed. Men in black suits waited by the door. My mother tucked the ring into her purse and pressed the clasp. The click was small, but it carried. She kept collecting. A gold chain, a brooch, earrings from the velvet tray a neighbor had set down as a keepsake display. People looked and then looked away. Eyes dropped to the floor. I counted breaths to keep from shaking. My father stood 2 steps behind her, arms folded. He never touched a thing. He did not have to. He gave one small nod. Go on. Last week their voices turned sweet all at once. The calls, the sudden warmth when they said my name, the way they moved through the house like it already belonged to them. My grandparents were not in the ground yet. I looked at the photo board. My grandmother in her apron. My grandfather with a fishing rod. Sunday dinners. Report cards held up for the camera. The ring is in every frame. Something shifted in me. Not fury first. Clarity. If I stayed still, I would be the reason those pictures stayed stuck on foam board while the ring sat in her purse. I wiped my wrists with a napkin. I set the cup on a side table. My voice came out low and plain. "Put the ring back," I said. Heads lifted. My mother blinked once. "Excuse me?" "Put it back," I said. "Right now." I had 2 choices. Keep quiet and disappear from my own life, or draw a line and live with what comes next. If you have ever stood frozen while someone rewrote your family story, stay with me. This is where I stopped being quiet. For good. I set my hand on the strap of my bag, drew a long breath, and said nothing more. I did not wake up one day and become the quiet daughter. I learned it in pieces. When I was 9, my mother said, "Be good at the service. No tears, no questions." I kept my hands folded and my voice low. Adults praised me for being easy. That word followed me for decades. In high school, I earned straight A's and never missed practice. If I was sick, I still howled up. If I was sad, I smiled. Teachers called me dependable. My parents called me mature. I called it getting through. In college, I took the early shifts at the campus cafe. I sent money home when my father hinted about a bill. He liked to say, "We're a team." I did not ask what part of the team he was. After graduation, I became a teacher. Kindergarten first, then first grade, then back to kindergarten because I loved the way small kids tell the truth without trying. At home, telling the truth was different. We did not say what hurt. We smoothed it. My mother managed the social calendar, guest lists, centerpieces, a list of dishes I was good at that saved her time. She praised me for being helpful and reminded me the family looked better when everyone cooperated. I peeled potatoes and kept the sink clear. I left early to set up chairs. I stayed late to stack them. If I did it right, no one noticed. That was the test. My father tracked appearances. He cared who greeted him first, Nia, who poured his drink, who laughed at his jokes.
When I dated a kind man with an old car, my father said he was a bad fit for our table. I stopped bringing him around. I told myself I was protecting peace. Money moved without talk in our house.
It moved through me a lot. If I picked up a bill, no one argued. If I put cash in a birthday card, the amount set the tone for the week. I learned the range that kept the room calm.
My brother arrived late on holidays. He carried big ideas and zero groceries. He would clap me on the shoulder and say I was the heartbeat of the family.
He never learned my work schedule. I brought the food, the gifts, the folding tables from my garage.
He brought a story about a startup that needed a small loan. My parents told me to believe in him. I did. 3 times.
Texts came in at odd hours. Can you swing by the store? Can you pick up Aunt Linda from the airport? We're short on desserts. Grab anything chocolate.
It sounded like nothing.
But it grew. Whew. And I said I had lesson plans. My mother said, "You're good at time management. You'll figure it out." I was good at figuring it out. Call the Uber, put the roast in at $3.50, transfer $200, say thank you on the family thread, do not mention the thing that stung, do not correct the story when it bends. At school, the staff meeting moved to 7:30. The email went to Natalia instead of my name, so it did not hit my inbox. I sat in room 204 at 8 o'clock and wondered where everyone was. When I walked into the library at 8:12, the slide deck was already on page 3. No one looked up. Birthdays were group dinners, where the check slid toward me. I do not know when that started. It happened once, then twice, then always. I made more lists. I told myself I preferred control. It kept me from asking for anything. If you do not ask, you cannot be refused. The PTA posted a "thank you" board in the hallway. It listed donors for the new tablets. The tablets came from my grant and 2 Saturdays of pickups. I took a photo for my class newsletter and said nothing. They asked how work really went. I wiped the counters and went home. Inside my parents' house, I was a role, the one who could be counted on, the one who did not take up space. Relatives praised my mother for raising a caring daughter. When things went wrong, I patched them. He returned it with an empty tank and fast food wrappers under the seat. My parents said he was going through a lot. I walked to work until payday. When my mother's charity gala fell apart the day before, I left school at 4, changed clothes in the restroom, and drove across town. I stapled programs and taped cords to the carpet. She told her friends I was born organized. I slept 4 hours and taught phonics at 8. It turned me into the kind of person who says no problem when there is a problem. With my grandparents, I was a person. With my parents, I was a function. I did not say that out loud. My friends planned a weekend trip. The group chat changed to a new thread without me. I saw the photos on Sunday night and learned the date had moved. I put my phone face down and checked the calendar. My name wasn't on anything that weekend. I watched my mother manage stories. If someone asked why she and my grandparents were distant, she would talk about busyness and different seasons. In private, she rolled her eyes at their frugal habits. She called them stubborn when they said no to new investments. She called it wisdom when my father used the same word. My mother called the gifts boring. I called them help that mattered. My father liked markers of status. He could be charming with strangers, moving from table to table, shaking hands, using names, At home, he went quiet when he did not get his way. The room adjusted to that quiet. There was a vacation I paid for without saying I paid for it. A hotel held on my card just for the points, then never reimbursed. There was a time I covered property tax for a week, then the week never came. I told myself I was lucky to be in a position to help. My brother called me a vault. He said I kept the family together. He said teachers have summers off. I told him I spend June and July planning units and buying supplies. I did not name any of this as control. I called it being the adult in the room. When I felt a pinch, I told myself to drink water and move on. The month before the funeral, my parents were warm with me in a way that felt staged. They invited me to dinner twice. My mother introduced me to her friends like a guest, not a daughter. She said I had such a generous heart and knew how to do the right thing. The phrase felt like an assignment. A 2 a.m., 2 funerals worth of logistics in 3 days. I handled the obituary, the photo board, the catering order, the parking plan. My parents stood in the lobby and shook hands. During the viewing, a neighbor set out a velvet tray of keepsakes. A brooch, a rosary, a small silver box. People were supposed to choose something small in memory. My mother treated it like a display case. I watched her fill her purse. I told myself it must be grief. Another part of me said she was doing what she always did, taking and calling it order. I did dishes after the burial until my hands went numb. My father asked me to go through mail and filter anything important. I did not open any envelopes. That night, my phone lit up with messages from my parents. They thanked me for being steady. They said there would be a reading of the wills soon, and we should plan how to keep things fair. My stomach turned at the word fair. I brushed my teeth and answered. Let me know time and place. The next morning, my mother texted, You should meet us for brunch. I said I had lesson plans. She replied with a heart and a thumbs up. Then she sent a list of errands that would really help. Candles, paper goods, a drive out to the florist to pick up the last arrangement. My grandmother had signed the invoice the week before. The C. Lurk said my grandmother asked about my class every time she came in. At home, I opened the family group thread. My brother had added 2 friends to it without asking. He said we needed advice on next steps. They talked about estate law like a game. They joked about claiming the truck in the garage and calling dibs on furniture. I put my phone face down and stood at the sink until the water ran cold. In the afternoon, my father called and used his business voice. He said a lawyer named Matthew Goldstein would gather us later in the week. He said we should keep emotions in check and act as one. This is a family matter. At the data meeting, my reading pilot showed up under another teacher's slide. The principal said, Her initiative really lifted scores. I had typed that protocol, printed the cards, and trained the aides. I signed the attendance sheet and spelled my name right. If you've ever sat in a meeting chair and felt your name go missing, stay with me for a minute. I walked through my grandparents' kitchen. The calendar on the wall still showed last month. Sunday dinners were circled in blue. In the square, for this week, my grandmother had written, Call Natalie, and drawn a heart next to it. I took the calendar down and set it in a drawer so it would not get splashed. That night, the family thread went quiet. Then a new text came from my brother. Big day coming. Be smart. I did not reply. I turned on Do Not Disturb and set an alarm for 7. At 8:12, The next morning, the lawyer called. The call came at 8:12. "Miss Foster, this is Matthew Goldstein," he said. "I'm handling your grandparents' estate. Could you come to my office at 10? I wrote the address on a sticky note. I wore a plain black dress and flats. I parked on the street and fed the meter. The office was a converted house with a brass plaque. Inside, the carpet smelt like lemon cleaner. My parents arrived 2 minutes later. My mother's heels clicked down the hall. My father checked his watch and said nothing. My brother came last with a laptop. Matthew walked in with a folder. He pressed a button and the recorder lit red. He read the formal lines. Names, dates, witnesses. Then the line that mattered. Elizabeth and Harold bequeathed their entire estate to their granddaughter, Natalie Foster. He listed accounts, the house, and a minority stake in the company. My mother set her purse on the table and stared at me. My father traced the page with his finger. My brother's mouth opened and then closed. We read one more section. They make no provisions for their son, daughter-in-law, grandson, or daughter. They have provided for them in life and recorded their reasons. My father went first. This is a mistake, he said. They were not thinking clearly. We will contest. Matthew kept his voice even. He said the will was recent and witnessed. He said capacity was documented. He said a contest would be expensive and unlikely to win. My mother shifted gears. She reached for my hand and smiled. "Sweetheart, this is not right," she said. "Your grandparents meant the family to share. Sign a transfer to your father. You will be taken care of." I moved my hand back and folded it in my lap. I heard the vent. I smelled coffee from the hall. My brother leaned forward. He said the business should go to Dad. He said I could keep the house if I wanted. He said he had a platform idea and needed seed money. Matthew slid a sealed envelope toward me. He said it held documents and keys. He said there was a video message if I wanted to play it now. I shook my head. My father stood so fast his chair scraped. He planted his hands on the table. "You cannot do this," he said. "You are a teacher." "You do not understand money." He turned to Matthew. "You should have called me first." Matthew said, "I called the beneficiary." My mother tried warmth again. "We all love you," she said. "You would not even have that apartment without our help." "Let your father handle the paperwork." I said I needed time. She said time would make things ugly. She said people would talk. Matthew stood. The meeting was over. We walked out into the hall. My father caught my elbow. "Come to the house at 6, he said. "We will sort this out as a family." I put the envelope in my bag and zipped it. My mother leaned close and whispered that peace required the right choice. My brother lifted his phone like a reporter and mouthed, "Don't make this hard." I drove to school. I unlocked my classroom and sat at the horseshoe table. I opened the envelope. Names, account numbers, instructions about keys, and a security code. The code matched the one my grandmother wrote on a recipe card last Christmas. I held the card against the page. The numbers were the same. My hand shook once and then settled. My phone buzzed. My father wrote, "See you at 6. My mother sent a smile emoji. My brother sent a thumbs up and a wink. At 5:45, I pulled into my parents' driveway. Stone, glass. The door opened before I knocked. My father stepped aside. The living room looked staged. My mother stood near the fireplace. My brother sat on the couch with his laptop. My father pointed at a stack of papers. "Put the envelope on the table," he said. "Sign here and here. 10% is generous. You will keep the house for now. We will manage the rest." I read the top page. Header read, "Assignment of interest." It transferred every right to my father. It gave him discretion to decide my share later. Name appeared only once near the signature line. My mother softened her voice.
"Do not make this difficult,"
she said.
"You owe the family."
"You did not build any of this," my brother added pressure. "We can do this without lawyers," he said. "Just sign and we can all move on." My father tapped the pen against the table. "This is happening tonight," he said. I pushed the pen back with one finger. I said one word. "No!" The room stalled. My father's jaw set. My mother's eyes narrowed. My brother's fingers hovered. 6 was a courtesy, my father said. "You will sign, or regret this." If you've ever been told to sign just to keep the peace, stay with me. I kept my hands on the table. I did not speak. My father leaned in. "Last chance," he said. I looked at the envelope by my foot. I looked at the pen near my hand. I took a breath and kept my answer. He straightened. "Then leave," he said. "Take your envelope and go." I picked up my bag and stood. My brother called after me. "You will be back by the weekend," he said. The porch light was on, though it was daylight. I walked to my car. I set the envelope on the passenger seat. The dashboard clock read 6:41. I pulled away from the curb. I did not know where I would sleep. I knew one thing. I was done signing things that erased me. A pen ticked softly against the folder, thin and final, like a period to the meeting. I drove without the radio on. I turned toward my apartment, out of habit. I parked across from the building. A paper was taped to the lobby glass. Black letters read, "Notice." An LLC name sat under it. My unit line said, "Termination, effective immediately." I tried my key. The lock hit metal. The cylinder had been changed. A folded paper in the jamb said a locksmith would meet me tomorrow at noon. I texted the property manager. I wrote, "Key does not work. What is happening?" He replied, "Owner directives. I can let you retrieve essentials now." He came down with a heavy key ring and opened my door. 10 minutes, he said. The router was unplugged. Drawers were half open. A cardboard box sat on the bed with a sticky note. The note said, "Essentials only." The handwriting looked like my mother's. I packed underwear, 2 shirts, jeans, a sweater, my toothbrush, my passport, and my insurance card. I rolled my grandmother's quilt and wedged it under my arm. He handed me a sheet about a lease review. It had bullet points with no boxes checked. "Who owns this building?" I asked. "I cannot disclose," he said. "I am sorry." In the car, my phone lit up. My mother wrote, "This is temporary." My father wrote, "There are legal steps." My brother wrote, "We can get you a better place once papers are signed." I drove to my grandparents' house. The porch light was on, though the sky was still bright. I used the code from the envelope. The door clicked open. I stepped into lemon cleaner and old coffee. No voices, no TV. The refrigerator motor was the only sound. I walked the rooms. The dining table was bare. Towel. L's were folded in the cabinet. Everything sat ready for a Sunday that would not come. I put water on for tea and charged my phone. I spread the papers from the envelope on the table. Keys with a rabbit charm. 2 garage door remotes with tape labels. Instructions for the alarm company. The principal called to check on me. She said a parent complained about my absence. She said to take the time I needed. I said I would be back by 8 tomorrow. My brother texted next. "We're coming at 10 to pick up heirlooms," he wrote. "Please don't make this weird." I took a photo of the screen. I texted back, "Do not come in. This property is not open to you." My mother called within a minute. Flat tone, scripted pauses, like a call center. "Honey, this is our family home," she said. "We will only collect personal items. No need to involve outsiders." "The will named me," I said. "I do not consent to entry." I made tea and held the mug with both hands. In the junk drawer were rubber bands, bat earrings, a spool of thread, and a tiny screwdriver. A small envelope of spare keys was labeled "Guest House." I left it in place. I washed my face and brushed my teeth. I set my box in the guest room and plugged in my charger. I laid the quilt at the foot of the bed. A text from an unknown number said, "Media, asking about the estate. Stay professional." I tried to sleep. The house creaked, a car idled and moved on. My jaw ached. I woke at 2 to tires on gravel. A dark SUV slowed by the curb and rolled forward. I watched until the street was empty again. I made a short list on the back of the notice. Call Matthew first thing. Photograph papers. Record all texts. Do not respond to provocation. Do not open the door without a police escort. Move the car into the garage. At 6, I showered and dressed in jeans and a gray t-shirt. I opened the kitchen blinds to see the drive. I checked email. The district asked me to confirm emergency contacts. The form still listed my parents first. I closed it. He tabbed. Outside, a neighbor across the street mouthed, "You okay?" At 8, I called Matthew and left a voicemail. "They say they will come at 10, I said. "The apartment lock was changed." I printed the text thread and slid it into a manila folder. I set the folder beside the envelope on the table. At 9:30, a delivery van brought a box addressed to my grandparents. I signed and set it by the door. At 9:52, my mother texted, "We are a few minutes out." At 9:55, I moved the car into the garage and closed the door. At 9:58, I heard engines and tires on gravel. The doorbell rang, then it rang again, then a long hold that buzzed through the hall. I stood in the foyer with my phone ready. I hit record. I checked the chain and left it on. Through the glass, my father stood on the step. My mother was behind him. My brother held his phone up like a reporter. 2 relatives waited on the walk. My father pressed the bell again and called my name. "Open up. We are here for a simple collection," he said. "You are making this harder than it needs to be." Through the door, I said, "This is not a good time." "You do not have permission to enter." "Please leave." My brother filmed. My mother said neighbors were watching. My father tried the handle. I dialed Matthew and put the phone on speaker. Voicemail picked up. "It's happening now," I said. "I am recording." The bell buzzed again. The door shook once. Someone laughed. I stepped back and kept the camera pointed. "Do not come in," I said through the wood. If you've ever watched people test your lock and call it family, stay with me. Car doors opened somewhere down the drive. I stood still. I watched the second hand on the wall clock hit 12. I held the phone and waited for the knock that would make me call the police. I cupped the tea, letting the warmth soak into my palms before I nodded to myself. The knock came hard. Wood jumped against the chain. My phone timer read 10 o'clock. "Leave the step," I said. "You are trespassing." My father said, "Open the door." My brother raised his phone. I called 911. I gave the address.
Family at the door without consent, I said. The will places me in control. I am recording.
The operator asked if I was alone. I said yes. She told me to keep the chain on. A siren sounded. 2 officers walked up the path. They asked who lived here. I held my license to the glass and slid the 1-page will summary through the crack. An officer asked me to open 3 inches. I latched the chain tight and kept the phone recording against my chest. My father said, "We are retrieving heirlooms. She is confused."
This property is under my control by will, I said. There is no emergency.
I handed over the printed text announcing their plan to enter at 10. The officer read the page. "Do you have permission?" he asked my father. My father said, "We are family." Miley does not replace consent. The officer said. He gave no trespass warnings and said they would be cited if they crossed the threshold. He told them to leave the porch and take disputes to civil court. They walked back to their cars. Doors slammed. My hand shook. I sat on the stairs. The officer slid a small card with a case number under the chain. Then he left. The door closed. I locked the deadbolt. My phone buzzed. Matthew's name showed. I answered on speaker and told him what happened. "Emergency filings are ready," he said. "We will request a temporary restraining order today. Do not open that door again." I printed 2 sets of the texts and clipped them with the officer's card in a clear folder. I wrote the time and names on a yellow sticky note. I stood at the sink and felt my body stall, hands cold, legs heavy. It looked like calm. It was not calm. I remembered the phrase functional freeze. The way out is a small action you can name. I named 3 actions. Change the alarm code, switch the garage code, call a locksmith. I opened the alarm panel and followed the sheet from the envelope. I typed the new code and pressed test. The panel beeped. I held the garage remote until the light blinked and paired it again. I called the locksmith whose card was on the fridge. I booked a 2 o'clock rekey for both doors. The bell rang softly. Matthew stood there with a thin briefcase. I let him in and locked the door again. He laid forms on the table and pointed to tabs. "Sign here and here and initial there," he said. I read, signed, dated, and clipped the printouts on top. He photographed the pages and uploaded them to a court portal. He left a copy set for me. "Cease and desist letters go out today with the case number," he said. "What about my apartment?" I asked. "We will demand the lease and ownership records," he said. "Do not go back alone. Change passwords and emergency contacts," he added. "Make sure recovery does not route to your parents." I changed my school emergency contact to the principal and to Matthew's office line. I removed my parents as authorized users on my phone account. The freeze loosened, my hands warmed, my jaw eased. He drafted a short text to my family. "All future contact must be through counsel. Do not visit the property again. Further attempts will be reported." I sent it. I blocked calls but left texts and emails open for record. I started a folder on my laptop named Evidence. I reread the filings. The language was plain. Dates and times sat in order. The ask was clear. I thought of another phrase. Emotional erasure. Present but not counted. The fix is a boundary people can see and a paper trail they cannot argue. The locksmith arrived at 1:55. I checked his license and let him in. He replaced the cylinders and handed me new keys. I signed the receipt and paid by card. Matthew left for the courthouse. He said he would message when the judge signed. I heated soup and ate at the counter. I stood without bracing. At 3:12, Matthew texted a photo. The top line read, "Temporary restraining order." It listed my father, my mother, my brother, and 2 others. There was a case number and a hearing date. "Order granted," he wrote. "Service today." I saved the photo to the evidence folder and printed a copy. I set the paper by the door. An email arrived from a reporter using my grandparents' names. I forwarded it to Matthew. He replied, "No comment, all press through counsel." At 4:05, A process server texted a confirmation. He said my parents had been served at their address. I stood in the foyer again. The new lock turned smooth. I set the chain and checked it once. I taped a printed copy of the order inside the sidelight window. An unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. The property manager for my apartment said the owner would meet me tomorrow to talk about next steps. I saved the voicemail and texted the audio file to Matthew. The house stayed quiet. No engines in the drive, no bell. I wrote to one more list. Confirm the alarm change. Schedule a bank meeting. Set up mail forwarding. Buy exterior cameras for the garage. I read the order again. The words were plain. They told me where my line stood now. Not a feeling. Not a hope. A line in writing. If you've ever drawn a line just to keep yourself from disappearing, stay with me. I won't bargain at the door again. I closed the folder and set it on the highest shelf. I locked the door and checked it twice. I charged the phone and set an alarm for the morning. The ink on the receipt had dried. I slid the pen back into my bag like closing a door behind me. I woke before the alarm. Coffee, notebook, quiet kitchen. I wrote the date. 3 lines stayed in front of me. Do not bargain at doors. Route contact through counsel. Paper first. I set the page as my phone background. At 8, I called the alarm company. Confirm the code change. Remove old authorized users. Add Matthew as secondary. They read the names and confirmed. They're E. Mail arrived and went into evidence. I called the bank. Add alerts on any account with my grandparents' names. Note, personal representative under the will. Probate pending. Text alerts for withdrawals over $100. Friday appointment for IDs and beneficiaries. I filed USPS forwarding and rented a P.O. box. Key number taped to a sticky in the folder. I drank water at the sink. My hands were steady. Black pants, blue sweater, low shoes. The manila folder held the TRO, the officer's card, and the text printouts. I locked the door. Alarm on. Countdown steady. I parked behind the school and used the side entrance. The custodian waved and said good morning. It sounded like any Tuesday. I unlocked room 204. Board on. Morning work, reading, math, music. The calm basket went where kids can reach. The principal offered coverage. I said I was okay and would ask if that changed. Kids arrived. Coats, shoes, voices. A boy handed me a rock shaped like a chip and smiled. We read about Rab. It's and sounded out shorta. The rhythm of school did its job. A parent texted my personal phone asking about the estate. I replied, please use my school email for class matters. I deleted the thread and added the number to the silent list. Recess, monkey bars, water, breathing through my nose the way the officer taught me. A colleague asked if I needed dinner. I said yes. Soup would be on my seat later. Reading groups, fingers under print. A tap when a word landed. Lunch with the union rep. Offered to attend the property meeting. I said Matthew would come. Reminder, I can decline questions that are not about school. Afternoon. A kindergartner cried in the hall. We counted tiles to 20 and went back. 3 o'clock. Chairs stacked. Rug straight. 2 notes home about book bags. A paper bag waited on my driver's seat. Soup, bread, fruit. The P.O. box key worked. 2 flyers and a postcard went into the tote. At home, I unlocked the door, set the alarm, and warmed the soup. Quiet was fine. I cleaned 1 drawer in the study, a tab labeled House, Codes, Vendors, Maintenance, Roof Warranty, HVAC Slip, Landscaper Number, I scanned and saved the files. Utilities switched to my name with a pending estate note, 2-factor on, backup codes on an index card. I walked the property line with my phone camera, fences, gates, exterior cameras, timestamps checked and uploaded. Soup and bread at the counter. I stood without bracing. If you've started living again, quietly for yourself, keep it. Laundry ran in the garage, guest sheets folded warm. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., meeting with the apartment owner and property manager. I texted Matthew my schedule. He confirmed 9:40 arrival. I texted the neighbor who filmed yesterday, full name and email collected. She was willing to describe what she saw. 2 parent emails about reading levels answered, short replies, school only. I took a short walk before sunset. Mailboxes to the corner and back. Shoulders stayed down. Back inside, I built a small shoe shelf by the door. Labels for house keys and car keys. A copy of the TRO slid into a clear sleeve on the rack. I once read a line about reclaiming space, not a speech, just labels and a folder. That's what this is. I packed a small tote for tomorrow, license, will summary, TRO, texts, charger, water. An index card held a script. I declined to answer without counsel. Please send that in writing. I will wait for my attorney. Front door check. New lock smooth, chain set, and checked once. Voicemail from the locksmith. Deadbolts for the back gate available if I need them. Number saved. Hall lamp on a timer. Garage opener on a shelf. 2 pages of a paperback in bed. Book face down to keep my place. Phone set to do not disturb except for Matthew and the principal. Before sleep, I repeated the 3 lines. Not bargain at doors. Root contact through counsel. Paper first. Tomorrow is a lease meeting. Short share, long table. I'll sit anyway. I will bring a pen and my own chair. If I have to, I will keep my answers short. If voices rise, I'll pause and step out. I exhaled. My shoulders dropped a notch, the tight space between my shoulder blades loosening. Morning came clear. I loaded the tote in the folding chair. Matthew met me on the sidewalk. We walked in together. Long table, short chairs, manager at the far end. Owner beside her, not smiling. I set my chair level with the table, phone face down on a legal pad, hands open. The manager started. Your parents have concerns, she said. We need to discuss termination and immediate access. Matthew slid the TRO across the table. Those people are covered by this order, he said. There will be no access by them. I will discuss my lease, I said. I will not discuss family matters. The owner pointed to a clause about termination for owner use. 30 days, he said. Written notice, I asked. Proof of ownership? Ledger with my payments and deposit? Legal name of the owning entity? He said the entity was PR. Ivit. Matthew tapped the blank line on their paper. The name must be on the notice. I read dates and amounts. I have never been late, I said. The manager asked when I could vacate. She warned about fees if we did not agree today. I wrote a list on my pad. 0 balance release. Deposit returned in 14 days. Neutral reference letter. No negative reporting to any tenant screening service. I slid the pad toward the owner. These are my conditions, I said. Email the release by end of day. Is this going to court? He asked. I am stating terms I will accept, I said. He asked for the keys today. He offered supervised pickup later this week. No, I said. I will choose my move date. Keys remain with me until the release is signed. Matthew placed a thin packet on the table, a prepared filing sat tack. The cashier gave a small smile, pushed the receipt toward me, and said quietly that everything was clear between us. No one touched it. We let the room go quiet. The clock ticked once in the hall. The manager asked for flexibility. I asked for certainty. Send the release, I said. When it is signed by both sides, we will talk dates. The owner looked at the TRO again. He folded his hands. He said he would consider the terms. He gave an email and direct number. I stood, chair in hand. One more thing, I said. If anyone connected to my family enters this building, call the police and call my attorney. Daylight again. How do you feel? Matthew asked. Steady, I said. We ate quick sandwiches across the street. I wrote an email to memorialize the meeting. Subject, lease release terms and today's discussion. 4 bullet points, all communications through counsel, sent to the manager and the owner. CC Matthew and my union rep. I drove to my grandparents' house. I set the chair by the door. I titled a page, Move List, Kitchen First. Plates, cups, 1 pot, knife, bedding, 2 suitcases of clothes. I called a mover for an estimate. 2 people and 1 small truck. Date, pending the signed release. I canceled department autopay and removed the save card. I printed the confirmation. 2 clean boxes went into the trunk with tape and a marker. I set a 1-hour timer for the apartment. The manager met me in the lobby. She walked up but did not enter. I propped the door with my chair. I filmed a slow pan of the room. I spoke the time and date. I packed dishes and bedding only. I photographed meters and the refrigerator. I locked the windows. I talked. An old security guard nodded as I passed. The nod was warm enough to remind me I wasn't alone with the trash. Back in the car, I texted Matthew. 1 hour done, no incidents. I carried the boxes into my grandparents' kitchen and labeled them. I washed my hands. I opened my laptop. A reply from the manager waited. Draft release by end of day. She asked for my move date. I did not answer that part. I wrote back 1 sentence. I will review the draft when it arrives. I set a 5 p.m. alarm to check my inbox. I set the chair by the door again. I once read about reclaiming space. Today it is a chair and a list. I knew what it meant today. I remembered the freeze frame from the door camera, the box with my name turned sideways. Today, the chair is mine. I can hear my own voice again. If you have ever felt yourself disappear in a life that should be yours, pick your chair and keep it. I am not asking to be allowed. I am choosing how I will proceed. I will keep my side of the street. At 5, the alarm chimed. I opened my inbox. The draft release sat on top. 3 terms were correct, 0 balance, deposit in 14 days. Neutral reference letter. The last line was wrong. They wrote they may report to tenant screening services. I called Matthew on speaker. He told me to replace may with will not. He said to add that any prior adverse report must be withdrawn within 24 hours of signing. I marked the PDF with 2 clean bubbles. No adjectives, no threats. Matthew sent the red line with a short note. He asked for a signed copy by noon tomorrow. I cooked eggs while we waited. No reply came. By 7:10 a.m., a new email arrived. Subject: Revised Release. They accepted all changes. I printed 2 copies and drove to Matthew's office. We walked to the building. The manager waited with a clipboard. I handed over the keys only after she signed and stamped the release. She gave me a 0 balance ledger and a time-stamped receipt. I photographed both. I filmed a short walk-through of the unit. Cupboards empty, Fridge clean, windows locked. Left 2 notes on the counter with dates and small tasks finished. I filed the signed release under apartment, exit. I checked the TRO copy on the fridge and wrote the hearing date on the wall calendar. I opened my bank app. The deposit showed as a pending wire. The amount matched the ledger. I ordered a file rack and a small safe. I labeled folders for lease, ledger, photos, emails, and social. I reset the Wi-Fi name to my own and changed the password. I once read that when you set a boundary, the pushback proves the boundary was needed. That sentence made sense today. Matthew called at 4. He traced the Shell LLC to a holding company signed by my father. He asked if I wanted to push for sanctions. Not today, I said. I want quiet and clean paperwork. The release and the deposit are enough for this chapter. I cooked rice and beans for dinner. At 7, the wire cleared. My bank sent a notification. I screenshotted the balance and filed it under ledger. I wrote 1 check to Matthews, firm for the retainer. I sent $50 to the local shelter online. Carlos knocked on the back door. He helped move 8 boxes to the basement shelves. I sat at the table and read the release again. No balance. Deposit returned. Neutral reference. No negative reporting. I exhaled and felt space in my chest. Not victory. Room. I emailed the manager a thank you and asked her to confirm the reference letter within 7 days. She replied at 8:21 p.m. with 1 word. Confirmed. I put the folding chair by the door. I turned the deadbolt and set the chain. I washed the dishes and turned off the lights. There is still trouble on the edges. There is also order. Tomorrow I will start on the garage and the paper boxes my grandmother labeled years ago. For tonight, the documents are signed and the keys are mine. In return came a long silence from their side, settling like a thin layer of dust on the table. I started this story with a camera freeze, a box with my name turning sideways on a pose. Today, the same porch holds a folding chair and a locked door I control. I woke before 6. I checked the front feed on my phone. Empty walkway. Sprinklers ticking on the lawn. No boxes, no visitors. I made coffee and set a timer for 4 minutes. I sliced an apple. I took my pill and scratched the date on the wall calendar. I opened the binder labeled apartment exit. The receipt was there. The ledger and the wire confirmation sat behind it. The release was signed on page 2. Under it, I kept the photo of the keys in the manager's hand. I moved 1 folder to archive and wrote the word closed on a sticky note. I flipped the Wi-Fi toggle and checked the new network name. It read my own first name, Plain. I drove to school and parked in the same spot. I walked into room 204 and wrote the day's warm-up on the board. 2 students asked if we were still doing the plant project. Yes, I said. Bring the jars tomorrow. We will start the cuttings. At lunch, the union rep stopped by the door. She said the principal had my note on file. She said, "You handled it clean." I said, "Thank you, that was all." In the afternoon, I called the shelter and asked what they needed this week. They said bleach and dry food. I put both on my list. I added a bag of crayons. After work, I drove to my grandparents' house. Carlos was repairing a latch on the gate. I asked if he could show me how to oil the hinges next time. He said anytime. I opened the garage and looked at the boxes my grandmother labeled years ago. She wrote in block letters and underlined the months. I stacked the holiday bins on one side and put taxes in the front row. I set a 30-minute timer and sorted until it chimed. I ate dinner at the kitchen table. Rice, beans, a little salad. No TV, no phone. I checked my inbox. The reference letter was there. I saved the PDF and printed a copy for the binder. I wrote OK and drew a single line through the task. I set porch alerts to silent after 10. The box view stays empty. I sat by the door on the same folding chair. I watched the front camera on mute for 1 minute. Nothing moved except a cat crossing the sidewalk. I turned the screen face down. I thought about the first time I saw my name used like a weapon. I did not argue with that memory. I set it next to me like a heavy object and let it sit. I am not chasing an apology. I am not writing a speech. I am keeping the pieces that are mine. The chair, the keys, the list, my name. Tomorrow I will take bleach and food to the shelter. Sunday I will oil the hinges with Carlos. Next week I will start the plant cuttings with the kids and label the jars. If you are sitting in your kitchen with your keys and your name and your quiet, I hope you keep them. If you are not there yet, write one task and finish it. Say yes to yourself once. That is enough for a start.